What does it actually look like? What does it actually look like to build an art business outside of a full-time job? Hi, I'm Brooke, a watercolor artist trying to grow my art and stationery business outside of my 9 to 5. This past week, I created content, updated my website, I fit in the gym, and I tried to make consistent progress in my business without actually sacrificing my personal life. So, I wrote down everything that I did, and I'm going to take you on the week in my life of growing my art business without sacrificing my life. So, kicking off with Monday, I woke up a little before 5:45, and I'm currently reading The Millionaire next door. I try to read at least a couple of pages each morning, especially if I wake up before 6. I try to get at least a couple pages in. I read a little bit after 6. 6:15, I started getting ready for my day at work, but before heading there, I had to film my YouTube video where I looked at all my social media stats for July and talk about kind of what I noticed, how I can harness that information to do better for my August social media. And while I was getting ready, I started listening to my favorite podcast, or top 5 at least, favorite podcasts. Tony and Ryan. I've been listening to them since the absolute beginning, and it's like my favorite podcast to listen to when I just need to give my brain a break. I, for the last couple weeks, have been catching up on a few weeks of episodes because I stopped listening to podcasts for a hot second. But 6:45, I started filming the video where I was recapping my stats, which I just told you about. And 7:25, so right before I left, I was filming a quick TikTok with a voiceover, just super quick, 2 seconds, before heading off to work. Then 7:50, had a little bit of an early week last week. I walked in my job. I walked into work to start my day. At 12, I had my lunch break, and I ate my lunch really quickly, which is something I usually do, is I eat lunch really quickly, and then I spend the remaining time working on my business. So Monday was spent following up with with retailers about getting my products in their stores wholesale. And I also reached out to a couple more retailers. I have set a goal to try to reach out to 2 businesses a week, in addition to all of my follow-ups. But my overall goal is to add 1 to 2 more. My goal is to add 2 more wholesale accounts to my business by the end of the year, so I can round out the year with 3 retailers stocking my products. It feels like a little bit of a stretch since I haven't had a new retailer come on board since the beginning of May, but I'm hoping that with my holiday line coming in, it'll start moving a little bit smoother. But at 5, I left work to go get some life things done and started working on my business. 5:15, I got home, and I spent some time just trying to figure out the concept of my Valentine's collection, my Valentine's greeting cards. So the one I started working on was of 2 rosé spoonbills together, and their bodies were kind of shaping a heart. I thought it was really cute, and it was actually one of the first designs I thought of when I was starting to figure out how I was going to build my Valentine's collection. 6:15, headed on to the gym because although I spend quite a bit of time working on my art business, I try to prioritize my health and go to the gym at least 3 days a week. Now, do I go on the set schedule I try to set? No. I try to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Something usually happens. I usually push one of the days, and it's okay because I always try to make it up on the weekend. If I know I'm doing things that weekend, I will be a little bit more strict with myself, and I'll go to the gym during the week. I'll get all 3 of them in during the week, but I'm really strongly trying to prioritize my health and get 3 days a week in. At 8:30, so post-gym, post-dinner, post-shower, everything, I spent some more time working on some concept art, mainly knowing, and I worked really hard. I think I got 3 designs figured out on Monday. I know I got 2 designs figured out. I feel like I may have gotten 3 designs figured out on Monday. And that was mainly because I knew I wasn't going to be able to work on any of it on Tuesday. And you'll see it in just a second. So Tuesday, I spent some time in my morning reading Millionaire Next Door again because I got up before 6. And I'm so glad I started reading it. And I kind of get to see how different people can end up depending on like their goals and activities. The section I was reading on this day was about Dr. North and Dr. South and how they have the same income. They both make like $250,000 a year, but Dr. North is a multimillionaire because he lives frugally and he saves a good portion of his money and he doesn't buy super expensive things. And Dr. South buys super expensive things. His net worth is about $20,000 if you don't count in the cars, I believe. He only has about $20,000 saved. And they make the same amount of money, and I think that's just really interesting to kind of like see how different people end up given them having the same situation. I'm very much a money nerd. I love learning about finance. You can ask any of my friends and they'll agree because we've had so many different money conversations, but it's just really interesting kind of learning about this. And it's definitely not my first finance book. It's like my 4th or 5th. But so if you need some finance book recommendations, let me know. I'll send them your way. 6 o'clock hit. I transitioned into editing my video that I had filmed the day before. So it's just editing my video, going through all my social stats, and honestly rewatching my video as I was editing. It's just really interesting how changing my content strategy halfway through the month changed how everything performed for the month. I was getting barely any traction on a couple platforms, and then I changed up what I was doing, and they did a 180, and they started performing really well again. So it was really great seeing that, and it kind of helped me push towards my current strategy that I'm working on right now. But 7:15, got ready for work, filmed a quick TikTok before leaving. I love listening to Tony and Ryan as I'm getting ready for work because it's just like a really fun start to my day. Then 8 o'clock, walked into work, started my job, and fast forward through the first half of the workday. At noon, I had lunchtime, and it gave me a chance to work on a few things for my business. I spent some time following up with a couple retailers that I didn't follow up with on Monday. I also spent some time working on some graphics for the YouTube video I was editing that morning because I got it like 90% edited of just cutting out all of the parts where I just kind of paused because I do a lot of pauses, I do a lot of retakes, so I got all of those cut and just trying to get those graphics added in. 5 o'clock. I ran home. I changed out of my work clothes into just like my casual clothes I like wearing and grabbed dinner before heading to the movies. So made sure to stop by Cane's for dinner. I enjoy Cane's, but its chief perk is that it's right beside the movie theater, so not like a whole lot of travel I have to do between going to dinner and movies. So quick dinner at 5:45 and over to the theaters to watch Spider-Man Brand New Day. Watch that starting at 6:30. And honestly, didn't start watching any Marvel movies till like 2020 because, well, it was 2020 and there was nothing to do because the whole world was shut down. And I, for the most part, or at least in like the Infinity Saga era of Marvel, huge Captain America fan. He was by far my favorite Avenger. But after watching Spider-Man, I think Spider-Man may be my favorite Avenger now. It feels weird to say, but I just think it's so crazy that, because every trilogy seems to have one movie that's like a little bit less good than the previous ones. Or, like, I have, in every Avengers trilogy, there's one movie that I don't really care for, unless you're the Thor movies, then I really only care for Thor Ragnarok. But, like, controversial opinion, I don't love Captain America Civil War. I think it's two Avengers shy of being an Avengers movie, and I think it just should have been an Avengers movie. But that's my controversial take. But every movie, every trilogy has like one movie that's like not great compared to the rest. And Spider-Man Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies are the first like group of movies where each movie kind of outdoes the previous. Each movie's like a little bit better than the last one, in my opinion at least. So, loved it, had a blast watching it. And the movie got done at about 9:30, so as soon as I got home, I went straight to bed. I was not working on anything with this business. So Wednesday, had another early morning wake up. I was not expecting to wake up early on Wednesday, but I did. And I was back to reading The Millionaire Next Door. As someone, like as I said already, someone who enjoys finance, it's such an insightful book. I've read so many finance books, but I love the way it's talked about like the different people who are millionaires, because everything I've read is kind of like getting you on the path to becoming one. But this is the first one who kind of describes how millionaires act, which is really insightful, really interesting. At 6 o'clock, I was back to editing my YouTube video about my July social media stats. Basically, just trying to get my graphs to work right, trying to get my graphs in there, get my graphics in there, and figure out how I want them placed in the video. 7:30, got dressed, got ready, went off to work, and started my official work day at 8 o'clock, 2 hours after I began working. At noon, I spent my lunch break creating the thumbnail and description for the video I had been working on, as well as some like general like admin related tasks for my business. Then at 5, left work to go home and work on my business. And 5:15, I started working on some more concept art before and after dinner. I try to regularly work on my business, but I don't let it take over my life. I regularly take time to watch movies and shows and be fully present with my boyfriend. Thursday, 6 a.m., didn't wake up early this morning, so jumped straight into my business, updating my listings to update my copy and replace the photos with the newer photos I took a few weeks ago. 7:20, got dressed for work and walked into work to get my day started at 8. At lunch on Thursday, it was more about creating the pins for all the listings I have on my Shopify site. I haven't been focused on this as much as I was about a month ago, but I'm turning my focus back to it to try to get traction to my website. Previously, it was trying to get traction to Etsy. All those pins are still out there, but I'm trying to add more so I can start generating sales on at least one of my sites. Then at 5, I headed home and stopped by the store to pick up a few things. 5:30 was so I got home at about 5:30. I bought some flowers at the store, so I spent some time arranging them when I got home. And I also attended to some of my plants to make sure they were doing well, which I need to do that again this week because I haven't tended to them in a hot second. Or at least it's so hot it feels like it hadn't been a hot second. At 7, the rest of the night was marked by ideating my booth concept because I want to do a market, not strictly an art market, but more of like a farmer's market kind of thing in about a month and a half. And so I'm just trying to figure out what all I want, how I want the placement done, everything like that. And it'll be my first market, so I'm just trying to make sure I get everything I need for this first one, and then I can kind of fix it routinely as I do more. Friday, 6:15, I had a bit of a late start this morning, and I worked on just like some general admin for my website. Basically, I just try to do all I can to improve the bmedit.com, and I try to do a lot of my heavy work in the mornings because I'm a bit of a morning person, and I feel like I get the best focus time in the mornings because I have fewer people contacting me, talking to me, stuff like that. 8 o'clock, per usual, I walked into work At noon, I actually didn't spend time working on my business. I spent time chatting with my boss and getting to know, like, just general talking with her because I love chatting with her regularly. 5, headed home for the weekend, and when I got home at 5:15, I started figuring out the concept art for my last greeting card design. Just like some general figuring it out before leaving for the gym at 6:15. Love, love, love going to the gym. This was a 2 gym during the week, so I did another day of the gym on that Sunday because I have to get my 3 days a week in. And I finished up my Valentine's designs, so I have a full 6 for my Valentine's. And I finished figuring those out at about 8 o'clock, and really excited to share those with you towards the end of the year so you can get your own Valentine's Day greeting cards for your loved ones. But there's a day in my life, or a week in my life, I guess, of growing my art business while still prioritizing my life. Because although I want this to be a successful art business, I don't want to sacrifice the things that I enjoy doing to get that done. A lot of my business is built in the early mornings and on the weekends. And I do that so I can spend as much as I can with the people I love, with the things that I love that are outside of art. So take this as what you wish. How do you prioritize your work, your life on a weekly basis? I'd love to hear it. I'm always looking for recommendations for books, for movies, for TV shows. Basically, anything you want to do. If you just want to chat, head on down to the comments. And until next time, bye.